Hi friends, Dennis Snappy II here with the HellFire Remote Viewing Group. We're getting ready to debrief a major project that took us about 2 months to complete, and we're going to go through some of that data today. I'm joined with our remote viewers, Daz Smith, Don, Henny, Darby, Dimmy, and Coral. We had a couple other viewers work this project as well that couldn't join us. That would be Naeem and Anita. Very big project, lots of data. The target was looking at Whitley Strieber's implant. It's a fascinating target. He claims in his book Confirmation that he had an implant placed behind his left ear. In 1989, he attempted to have the implant removed, and the implant moved away from the surgeon. It crawled to a different part inside his ear, inside his head. And there is video footage of this as part of the feedback available on YouTube. Fascinating target. They brought back incredible data. We're going to start by going through and just get a 2 to 5 minute reaction from the viewers of how they felt about their sessions. And then I'm going to share a presentation looking at all the wealth of data that they brought back. Don, I'm going to start with you. If you could just tell us kind of how you're feeling about your project and your data.
What was your most meaningful data in your session? I had a good hit here, and actually everything seemed meaningful. Whitley Strieber had a medical implant done in his ear, presumably by ETs. And in terms of visuals, I produced many laboratory and ET-related sketches. Beakers and test tubes, lab faucets, slides organized on a table, close inspection of something small. The involvement of non-human creatures, some AI robotic looking, others more biological, big and small, that had something to do with, get this, something bright going into your body. I also got a sense a well-groomed man of prominence was involved, and repeated perceptions of things organized and laid out on a table. In terms of written perceptions, I got this incredible backstory, which I'll say more about in a moment. Probably my session analysis, that is, my written summaries at the end of session 3, were the most meaningful, and I'll get to them in a bit. What was your reaction to this session? I guess the answer to that would be both surprise and disbelief. For example, on pages 8 and 9 of my third session, I couldn't believe the data I was getting from my ideogram. So, since I work on a tablet, I copied and pasted that ideogram onto another page and tried to reinterpret it a second time. Let me show you what I'm talking about. First time around, it started with interdimensional beings. What is that? I looked it up. Interdimensional is an entity that can time travel and move out of the body into a spiritual one. Okay, interdimensional beings come here, are present, liquidating noteworthy adversaries. I asked for more information here, and it indicated they were thinning out biological exceptions. These beings had exotic energy signatures and were beyond my comprehension. Whoa. Could I believe all that? No. So I did it again. Same ideogram. This time I got interdimensional exotic life forms doing intrepid introspection. What does intrepid mean? I looked it up. It means fearless or adventurous. So they're doing fearless or adventurous introspection of indigenous life forms, and they wore visors. Then I got some feelings about having limited access to this data. And also there were some spiritual feelings and attitudes present. Wow. Did you have any weird experiences during your session? At no point did I feel uncomfortable, even though I got the message, "You're not allowed here." But I did have a weird and curious experience, and this has to do with the process of remote viewing. My ideograms seemed to be narrating a story right from the start. I was not getting disjoint adjective like perceptions here, but fully formed, organized phrases. Humanoid beings with focused attention and holistic mindset. I don't say these words. Holistic, what does that mean? I looked it up. It means belief that the parts of something can be explained only by reference to the whole. In other words, I guess the whole universe, or everything around us, they have a holistic mindset. Holistic mindset. Holy cow. At one point, I had to stop and look at myself and ask, who's doing this session? You or me? I came to the conclusion that my ideograms wanted to speak for themselves. No thinking required on my part. I was just taking dictation. So that was my weird experience. I decided, in the interests of experimentation, to just let the session do itself. How do I feel about my data? I've never seen a remote viewing session like this. It's probably the best one I've ever done. The data was simply fascinating. I mean, I felt like I was reading a book. How do you interpret your data? I wrote 2 session summaries which convey their own interpretation. Let me read the second one. And this one came entirely from my ideogram, so here goes. Biologically enhanced ET life forms venture out into space to inhabit planets as a matter of course. These beings engage in local terrestrial life study involving many samples organized in groups. At some point, their efforts became a joint collaboration with the terrestrial populations, humans, which also involved the local military and government officials of the planet. The human involvement have their own interests in this work, which include military interests and space exploration. The ET beings are sending their results off-world with some end goal of resolving mass extinction concerns. Phew. What a session, man. What a session.
Okay, Don, thank you so much for sharing fascinating data. I'm looking forward to seeing how it ties into the analysis. Let's move on to Daz Smith. Daz, why don't you share just kind of your highlights from this project here?
Yeah, sure. I'll share my screen just to share a few quick notes. My favorite bits, anyway, this is. So my first favorite bit is this sketch here showing let me move that a minute, a communication between different life forms here, and some kind of very strange communication as well, non-verbal. And that, I wrote here, a sense of communication using pictures and feelings, a bit like a download. Here's the life form here with all this kind of weird interaction going on with him as well. And the best bit of data I think, is moving ahead here. I'm going to skip all this. I'm talking here about the communication itself and how the energy transfer of the communication happens. And I actually wrote here an AOL of an implant.
Wow.
And I knew it was a cleverly disguised thing within a human male. And it was disguised. And I also knew it was in the head nasal area as well. So yeah, that's the highlights. The rest of the stuff's really kind of technical. I had lots of information about quantum communication. It felt like the device they were using was using a high level quantum entanglement communication. It wasn't using like radio waves. Or anything like that.
Yeah.
Very
you got deeper and deeper into this target as you moved on. Great data that you brought back. I can't wait to share how it all connects. Great job, Daz. Thank you. Okay, Hetty, what are your thoughts on this project, your feelings, your experience?
Okay, I'm gonna screen share as well, but I'm just going to show some of my highlights. So the most recurring theme that I think Dennis have seen over and over was some kind of ringy, bracy thing with like a pocket inside it, which came back in my HRV session. And I never knew I was into biology, but it seems I am into biology because I was just going to check what that thing does. And it seemed to be some kind of jelly material, which was able to grow and extend. And it behaved or acted like a neural network. I sometimes called it, I think, neurons and axons, like growing out, and some kind of photochemical process that was taking place. The most verifiable part seemed to be some kind of small object that was handheld. And the most interesting part was, which I've seen in one of the feedback images from the Strieber implant story, was a crab-like biological, which was not exactly biological, but animated matter, which did not have consciousness, but was active and acting like a biological. I was concentrating on how these like protein fidgets grow out and expand into the biology. There was this whole process of how it works. And then I also had what I would probably go in and underline is, it seemed to be that the purpose of the thing is scientific, medical, and evolutionary. For me, it did not come through as a negative intervention. It seemed to be some kind of positive intervention. It was powering evolution. It was quickening a normal evolutionary process, and it seemed to be an energetic thing that was probably impacting DNA, because I had a helical motion and energy as a result of this like thing emitting energetics. And I also had data on who were behind this implant. It seemed to be biologicals who were like immersed in contemplating the future. They were somehow measuring future scenarios, like foresighting of what is to come, and they were intervening in some way in a really lab or scientific type of setting. It was really futuristic, this place where I have been. And where this lab is located, I think you have seen that many times as well. I had this image over and over and over again, some cylindrical, airborne in an orbital position around a planetoid. So yeah, that's my key data here.
Fascinating, and I can't wait to go through and see how that all fits into everything else, because there's corroborating data just amongst all of you. So that was a great session, Henny. Thank you. Okay, moving on to Darby for your highlights. I can't hear you, Darby. You're muted.
All right, thank you. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So I had prepared a little document going over the main highlights of my session. The process of doing the session for me felt a little more disjointed than it usually was, a little bit of a struggle, but that was more of related to where I was personally at the time and some morphing that my remote viewing processes I follow are currently going through. But just as a high level overview, I did a couple of extended remote viewing sessions, which is an approach I'm kind of gravitating toward right now. Saw a bunch of landscapes with structures in space. There was a big theme of cylinder-shaped objects, which I just saw in Henny's session. So I was happy to see that, because I really like it when I don't really consider the data I get as necessarily accurate or on target unless some other viewers have something similar. I mean, I like to see that. It certainly lends more validity to it. So a lot of cylinder-shaped objects, some in space, a lot of vehicle-like objects. Some interesting one that appeared that you had me retask was what I labeled as a UFO in shape of a human brain, and it had various what appeared to be like nerve tendrils dangling down, and very vibrant colors, and people were in a football field like area looking up at it. My cylinder shapes both seem to be hanging out on their own, but there also seemed to be a theme of them being retrieved. And we may be dealing with multiple objects, but I have some data here of a cylinder that seems to be being lifted, some data here in my paper sessions that seems to indicate almost like some kind of a crash. And I have a cylinder shape here. I'm wondering, I'm seeing it. A lot of my cylinder shapes had projections either in the ERV data or in this image here. And I was wondering, is it being hit by a missile, or are they just some other type of projection? Both in my ERV data, I had something that looked like a Devil's Tower, like natural area, both in my paper and ERV session. I probed a little bit in one of my paper sessions about the human life, and I got cargo transport vehicle, multiple vehicles on a line. I asked what they are doing. I got they were containing what? Again, there's this little cylinder shape object. I cued on the purpose and function of what I labeled the UFO brain with tendrils. And I had this image of an interesting image of like a spinning top kind of shape overlaid over a galaxy. And I got that there was layers to it, waves, something driving the process, receptor. Had an image of some type of an object and stars in the universe. One of the last pieces of data I got in the paper data was this image of a chair with two objects to the right and to the left, and something that I was either feeling was a vehicle, little vehicles in a bigger vehicle, or perhaps neural synapses. I want to go back a little bit before I sound off here and go through some of the concepts. In addition to various type of vehicles, as well as the various type of life forms, some that seem to be non-human, I had a miscellaneous object, a green crystal shape with copper colored wires going around it in a chaotic manner, a box with wires or tubes coming out. And I'll leave us with just these concepts I got because I thought some of them are interesting, and I'm curious to see if any of them play into what the other viewers got. But I got a sense of someone breaking into something to get information and then leaving, something traveling and getting cooked. Travel time has been exceeded. Something about a group of people of a higher class society, they're growing too fat. Something about a young man not being given a chance, not understanding why. Harvest tradition was something I heard. A different kind of crop is needed. The one that is being used doesn't work well from the perspective of a farmer with animals. A dog meeting a younger dog, we will see how the older dog reacts to the younger dog. And that there are many choices being given. A life extension is one choice. There are 2 or 3 other choices. And one of the last, actually the very last piece of data I got was an image. There was this theme of an older man, like an advisor, kind of like an aristocrat, but he was kind of like the end of his run. And it might have been the same man. He was involved with several generations of a creation of some type. And then I saw this artificial humanoid form like a robot, and it cut to the image of this overweight man who was kind of chuckling smugly to himself. Wow. It's kind of hard to give a very short overview of data in such a short period of time, but that's kind of a snapshot of what I got there. And I'll send you over this paper as well, Dennis, if you want to add it to the synopsis of data. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Darby. Great job. Okay, Demi.
It's nice to not be on the first, because I already see some fits data to each other, so it's very interesting. I'm going to share my screen. I have a little presentation, just images, I mean. So, okay. So from the get-go, I started with like on the paging, from the page 2, with the human-machine interface as an LL. And already in my third page, I have now as a communion, and also I felt some pulsating arteries and the sense of a surgical operation. Again, to high level data. So I've got some description of the area there that could be. And I have a lab scene also at some point. And here I have, when I have the descriptors for S2, I have like something very much like PET CT scan, that type of energy or energy that it's moving between the elements there, and a sense of a ghost and a sense of a subdimensional on fluid is something I didn't know what was. And then on my first session, again, I had a cylindrical object, but this one was a very, very little one. And I felt it was like a retrieval or inserted man-made from somewhere. It felt sharp, prickly. And I also have a human chip IOL or nanotubes, because it felt very, very little, or its construction was made with elements with a small range of dimensions. And also it was very precise. I saw here around are the fleshy part of what I felt it was like a biological part, tissues. I had that all the time, the idea that it was a brain. Now I know it was not a brain, of course, but I felt it was embedded in the soft area, and I knew it was a human tissue. Second, I've come to see what's there, and I go on a rather ultra microscopic scale, let's say, because it felt like there are elements put together, very, very small, with a certain particular length, which were from mixed materials. It felt like it was a memory chipstick or something. This was made in layers, and every layer has a very, very complex component on it. Let's go to the description of this thing, because I have it like later. Every piece of layer here have very rounded points, like a curvy type of tubular things. Every tubular have little openings, little pinpoints. And that was the very, very small description of what I have had there. So I'm going to come back because it's not very long, this one. Again, I have the dome thing that Henny has had, and also I think it was on Darby's too. I didn't went too much there because I was afraid, which is not supposed to be, but I was afraid of too much going and being drift off or having hours. And it was a very interesting and blue, energetic, contained things. I don't know what it was, but it was on landscape with highlights there, and I move on further. And again, like the others, the dendrite construction structure of an human brain. And it was like this thing was somehow moving, and it was like it was alive and discharging electrical, chemical signals periodical on a level of ribosomes. I have an axon, dendrite, neural synapse, so it's interfering somehow with these structures. I even draw a human brain with some parts of it. And then I went on another level, because I went on a whiteboard to see what could I get more from that. And I have this strange thing, this draw, which felt like it was evaluating through experience, learning through patterning. Now I'm thinking that we are the little fish, and the big ones are much, much on higher levels. And then I've got this particular thing, it's still at my first session. This was a man-made, was black for me, and it felt alive, like because it have a mind of itself and can take decision, and decisions are in line with the environment where it is this kind of things. It has little dendrites. Which can be move by itself, can move into because every kind of way, electrical, chemical, vibrational, and add to his
I think we're starting to lose your audio, Demi.
Information that also. Okay, how is now?
I think
I'm gonna change a little bit.
Yeah, you probably should start it over from that page because we were losing you a lot. There won't be anything audible from this page that you said.
So we can see this page.
I'm going to pause the recording for a moment. Hold on.
So these dendrites were able to move, so this object could move into the soft mass area. It has specific parts which can attach to specific parts of the tissue also. It felt like a nanotech device or like a discovery in medicine. And again, I have the idea of a symbiosis between two separate gestalts, man-made and of course biological. And I will go there now. No, sorry, it felt like it was tagged, like tagging an animal. So I felt compelled to draw this one because I really felt it was important to this presentation. Sorry. I forgot to close some things. It was like a symbiosis cooperation, like a Borg or AI or a prosthetic. And also the very interesting part of this was, because it's very hard to understand what I wrote here, but here are the biological, because I don't think Whitley Strieber is the only one which is there. The biological are not communicating on that level between them, but these devices that are implanted or put into them can communicate to each other like a hive or something like this, and can transmit to each other. But humans, or in this case humans of course, are not aware of this level of communication or information data, but it enhances their life through each cooperation or through each exchange of information at a higher level or in between the implants, not between the humans itself. So it felt like a network or which was alive, or like softwares in a biocomputer, man-made, which give directions, but life can follow its rules or can have his will, or his can take decision for his own, but also if he want, he can turn out to take decisions from the human implant. And the overall feeling was it was a better outcome, but with infinite possibilities. So thank you.
Yeah, great sessions. There's a lot to unpack there, Demi. So thank you so much for sharing that. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you for this.
Okay, Coral, if you're ready.
Yes. So there's just one thing that I'm not really public about, and that is when I was a baby, I had neurological damage on the right-hand side of my brain, and I have no labyrinth for equilibrium and no hearing on one side. And I actually have an implant. It was given to me as an adult. So I have an implant in my head, which I think might have made a difference about how I was viewing the implant. And as I opened my session, the first thing I said was Binah, which is one of the Sephiroth in the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life, which to me is the place where you go for healing. It's the dark, area. And I always, if I'm going through the work of the Kabbalah, I stop there and I say, okay, this is the place for healing. And that was my very first set aside. So I thought it was a bit strange. Now, let's see if I can screen share, because my biggest takeaway from this this viewing was the creatures that were connected, and I felt as though they were like fairy-like, superior beings, like Seth energy. So I'll screen share. Okay, that's my image of the creature. And that came in the second session. No, I think it's right in the first one. But I have the creature with the connection from the head, and I have different drawings of that. But I have like a being looking after a baby, as though the person with the implant was the baby, and it was created from the being. Something was extruded from the being. These are my beings there with this connection and this extruding. I'm trying to describe the connection.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to go further down on this one. After this, there you see out of the head at the bottom, out of the head is the plume of the connection. And there is what I've described as the implant. That's what to me looks like the implant. And it's reasonably similar to what I have in my own head. But it's got a key and it contains a DNA. So what I'm presuming that the information I got is there's the implant itself, but inside it has the DNA of the creatures that are using it. There's the drawing of the brain, and that's a close-up of what the thing itself looks like. That's a hand holding tissue, and I'm trying to describe this minced meat. It's like the brain, angelic being, the gourd of the sacred ground. And I'm trying to understand what it's doing. So I'm going, it's seeding. There's layers of reality. There's seen and unseen worlds. There's cells. I tried to make a lot of sense of what was going on, but my experience of connecting to the beings that are watching was very beautiful. It was, it feels like a seeding project, but not on a human level. And it feels like guardians that are mighty. And that in the end was the drawing, another drawing of the implant. Now I'm going to stop sharing that one, and I'm going to share the other session so that you can see the other drawings, which could be this one. Yeah, this is the first, that was the second session. And this is the first one. And there you can see, as I open, look, I've just finished here my ideograms, and I go straight into Bina. And I say, there's like a crystal with occlusions and other bits in it, like ruby chips, and it's sinking in. And here I have the effect, like this effect of connections and the eye of the cosmos. In other words, there's watching going on between, there's this connection between the two. And I have watchers. So I believe it's not one being that's connected, but more than one. And I'm trying to work it out here. There's my drawing of the brain with the connections through and ceramic-y. So my implant is actually metal ceramic-y, and it's magnetic. So there's something in my subconscious that's saying, look, and that's what it is. That's what it is. that's all I really have to say. I'm trying. It's a transporter. Abraham, the watch, where you shall walk. It's pillars of the Godhead. So I know that there's some kind of superior, very spiritual kind of intelligence that's watching, that's connected. That's all I really want to say.
Wonderful session, and I love those insights. And with all of you, as you're sharing different data points, I'm looking at it going, oh, I missed that in my prep. Like I just keep unpacking more and more. So if there's a piece that's missing in the analysis, please forgive me. We can always go back and add it later. But the depth of this, and as we go through this, you're going to see the division of work among all of you focused on different areas of this overall, looks like a large scale project that deals with the implantation of one race looking over possibly the human race, that deals with evolution. It deals with communication and symbiosis and AI and a whole greater picture. And ultimately, I think it is a beautiful experience. I know sometimes it's reported as this traumatic thing, but I'm not getting that in the data. I'm not getting this enslavement data that we sometimes, go down those dark rabbit holes. I didn't see any of that. I saw, hey, there is the akin to cattle and a lower intelligence, but it seems like it's for the most part beneficial for both races involved. So I'm going to go through that. We were just discussing offline for a moment, just our overall reactions as we were going through the sessions, and everybody was just kind of sharing how they felt. Don, I'll let you start, just kind of recap what you were saying.
Yeah, I was not fearful at all after this session. In fact, I got this sense that there was this holistic thing going on where there was like microscopic life talking to larger forms of life, talking to like intelligent life, to incorporeal life, and they were all hooked up. And this device that we're talking about was not like manufactured in the traditional sense. It was more like prayed over, using these, these beings that are outside of our dimension that can kind of like design stuff for other forms of life that are using this stuff that are then, implanting into other things. It was like, blew my mind.
Yeah, it blurs the line between technology and biology, I'd say, and spirituality and everything in between. I see our current state as we're evolving technologically, moving in that direction where that line is getting more and more blurred really by the day. And one of the reasons I tasked this target is this where we're going? And is this something that we should be fearful of? I'm starting to suspect this may already impact many of us, and we may not even be aware of it, just through experiences that I've had and things that I've read. So I think it's just coming to the mainstream now, and under the guise of, here's what Elon Musk is developing. But there's probably a lot of people out there going, I already got mine. It's the advanced model. So
my implant to hear with doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
No, it didn't
Ready
work.
Player One, yes. Something like this.
Yeah. Well, let me get into what I've prepared here for everybody. Daz, I know you may have to step out. If you do, that's fine. I'll try to get through what I have here if you have to leave. Okay, can everybody see my screen here?
Yes. Wow.
So Whitley Strieber's implant, target 98566625, and we were looking at the time of implantation with the HellFire Remote Viewing Club. Okay, so here's our tasking. The viewer will describe Whitley Strieber's implant located in his left ear at the time of implantation. The viewer will describe the main purpose and function of the implant and how it interacts with, impacts, and affects Strieber. I really wanted us to hone in on the moment that it was put in there and the overall purpose of the implant, which I think you all did an excellent job. Subtasks I was looking at: describe the implant and its main purpose or function, describe the impact or effect the implant has on Strieber, and describe the intelligence or the entity that implanted the object. A little bit of background here. In Whitley Strieber's book, Confirmation, he described having an implant placed in or behind his left ear during one of his encounters with the visitors. In 1989, an attempt was made to remove the implant. However, during the procedure, the implant moved away from the incision, Only a portion of the implant was removed and the remainder stayed in place. And this is one of the reasons why I picked this target, is because I think we have pretty good feedback saying there was an implant there. It's documented on video. It's out there on YouTube. Where they saw this implant. I think, was it Roger Lear or John Lear was behind that and helping him to get that removed. I think they got a piece of the implant, but they couldn't really get any data from it. Then it moved away into his head. In his book, The Supernatural, Strieber has referred to the implant and stated that at times a small window will appear in his eye or field of vision, and words will scroll across it like a tiny screen. We did have a bunch of eye data in your sessions as well. And in that book, he also talks about, I saw it, I can't remember who was saying it now, how at times he moves into what seems like a parallel reality or an alternate reality. As I'm looking at this data, I'm wondering if these implants, if you think about, just looking at where VR is right now, you put on the headset and you're in another world. If you have an implant in your head, maybe other worlds and realities exist just, on a server, basically a universe type of server. And that gives people the ability to sometimes snap into another reality. I don't know, but he does talk a lot about that. I wonder if the implants are part of that. Okay, my bias here. I've always been a fan of Whitley Strieber and his work. I admired him for his courage and strength to share such a personal, bizarre, and sometimes embarrassing story. And I'm thankful for the grounding force he's created, allowing thousands of other people to at least realize they're not alone in their strange encounters. I know at times he's been, that only voice out there. I'm like, wow, okay, maybe I'm not crazy. I suspect this device is an advanced form of AI, and I'm wondering if this tech is similar to what's currently under development, will eventually be provided or implanted to the entire population as the world moves to connect human minds. So that was my own bias before I even tasked the target. I wanted to declare that and get that out of the way. All right, these are our team of viewers here. As you can see, with everybody's name, it has a highlight around it. You'll see all of your data points are highlighted with each specific color here. So take a moment, memorize your color. If I forget, which I probably will as I'm going through this, my apologies. I'll have to come back and refer to this. So let's look at the implant and the technology data here. Now we're going to see a hodgepodge of different data points here. This is from Darby here. At one point he wrote he saw a smiling man in a suit that appears to be a news anchor. It's as if I'm looking at a page from a magazine and the page is ripped in half, cutting off the head of the person above from the mouth. I'm not sure if Don saw Whitley Strieber, but Whitley Strieber, he's a writer and he hosts Dreamland. He's been hosting that for decades, which is kind of like being a reporter. A news anchor sharing, and he also is behind Unknown Country, which is the his news website, which is fantastic. So I'm wondering if that's who Darby was seeing right there. Okay, so now we're looking at what this implant is, and this is just everybody's data that I was pulling together, talking about it, related to some type of technology and structures. Looks like a mech robot, space-related complex structures. Blue, I forget who that was, wrote, this is going into new cell phones. Idea of human thought is incapable of handling what this encompasses. Instructions from above, dictated to follow the rules. Idea of human currency. Nucleo-neurotransmitted hacked. Idea of bionuclear computing, using the human body to process. Is it unethical or without permission or subliminal, trailing off into the distance like a satellite or a spaceship? Huge population involved, advanced or collective tech, medical sciences. Why? Data acquisition. Bioenergy, Don asks, intense focus on something small. Idea of one person split into two humans, sending oneself off into another otherwise indesirable dimension willingly. Idea of manipulating human movement and habitation. Painful. Disintegrating or teleporting, unaware of being a lab monkey. Idea of wetware, yuck. Idea of part of the brain supposed to be inside the skull, medical, technical. Unhackable system, below population system awareness, very useful. Nuclear biocomputing, brain fry, Elon Musk implants, right there, nailed it. The biological hazard is double aspected. One appearing as two biologicals, both breathing, two spirals, feeling scientific. Worn on the head, receptive, one-way communication, has to do with ears and sound vibrations, subliminal darkness, and agenda isolated apart. What is on the head is also in the sky. It's the same as what stands on projected through wires, not mentally, kind of radiation signal, idea of virtually really being real, reality being real. Invisible turns solid, secret ignorance by the masses, a small group is benefiting. So this is the beginning as we're starting to make that contact with what this tech is. Okay, again, this is from Don's session, looking at medical sciences, coming to the location. A positive procedure, nothing special or out of the ordinary. There's an interstellar journey. And then on arrival, the energy is applied to a terrestrial study with long-term benefits. It's a repetitive study, male and female organisms, life cycles, longevity, monitoring, mental attitudes. So I do get a lot of data throughout all these sessions that this is a long-term study that's going on here. Holistic, the belief that parts of something can be explained only by reference to the whole. Their population or larger group, they're in imminent danger, they're confronting a deadline, life continuity. And I think that fits to some of the ET threads that we may have read over the years too. Okay, again, it feels like it's tagging animals here. And then Daz writes, I feel that it can be a two-way transmitter, but is more often not. A status or a signature, tracking, information and energy transfer, but not radio wave, like it's different, very technological and advanced. And then, I'm sorry, who's pink here? Is this Demi? Is this your session here? Has bio life, water and liquid land? The focus seems to be a certain man-made, which is very much in relation with biological. It's very small, microscopic, not very complex, made as an intelligent tool, supplement. It is beyond my understanding. It really works, but feels as being influenced by any kind of alteration of the biomass where it is embedded. Any change can direct its decisions to whatever biomass seated more like on a simpler level. It felt more like multiple bio cells together, connected, acting. I can't make out all your writing here, but just talking about how this tiny piece is interacting here. Great description there. Okay, looking at a little bit more here, we're starting now to get into what I think is the implant itself. And you'll start to note with the little dendrils that are coming off of them. We start to see this as a theme of these things hanging off of it. Moving to the project, it feels like there's a kind of key floating in an unseen dimension that I'm not able to interpret. And this is where Coral was talking about containing the DNA helixes with from inside it. And when you think about it, this reminds me of the movie Avatar, where they have the DNA of the avatar is merged with the DNA of the person, the human driver. So it allows them to communicate. And seeing that now, that's what I'm thinking of. That's pretty interesting here. And then the tiny little creatures that remind Coral of the fairy folk that were observed with this data as well. Very interesting stuff here. And then Darby has the little vehicles and a bigger vehicle, or neural synapses. Maybe it's all one and the same. Maybe these are the small implant that's within the human body here that Darby was picking up on. Okay, some more sketches here. I believe these are Henny's sessions here. As we're starting to see these cylindrical objects. And I know Henny had a lot of these drawn over what looked like a planetoid, but I'm also wondering if she was just picking up on a different scale here of the implant within the human body. Interesting shapes here. Reconnaissance, man-made, observing. Okay. And then we start to see more of these branches coming out here, spreading out and exploring here. There's her crab-like structure right here. And again, here, this tubular structure, is this like a satellite over a planet, or is this the tiny implant? And when you look at in a little bit Daz's description of how it goes in, he has the drawing of a syringe, but he says it's more like the cells are moved apart and there's no scar, no damage to it. So I'm wondering if that's what we're seeing here. Especially given the tasking was the actual implant procedure itself. More sketches here looking at what I think is aspects of what the implant looks like. We have more of these branches or these arms coming off of things here that seen across multiple sessions here. Darby describes it as a cylindrical shaped white object, projection sticking out of it and what looks like the American flag on it in writing. Looks like a piece of a spacecraft or satellite, depending on the scale that we're concentrating on this. And I think it's interesting that he saw the American flag on it, because there is other data that I started to find, just below the surface from some of you is that it seems like there's a possibility of some kind of whatever this race is working with some aspect of government. So maybe that's where Darby's picking up on that. Man-made, gray, long, metallic, cylindrical. Tubular is a word that we saw quite a bit. Hollow, sectioned. So a lot of good data here. Again, more of these tendrils, these sketches that across many of you here, this object with these tendrils, which I think is the implant itself, and maybe how it moves or how it spreads out and connects to different aspects of the human body to send information on it. Again, we're seeing more and more of these tendrils here that I think are very significant to how this operates. Are these inside the implant itself? Do they actually protrude out of the implant and connect into the tissue? I don't know, but there's definitely corroborating data amongst just about all of you with these. Now this is Henny's session, and I think Henny's looking at the device that actually implanted it here. She describes how this it basically extends and opens up, as you can see it here. So I think this is, again, she described it as a syringe or a needle, microscope, telescope. So I think this is what's used to put this in. This was great data here. Don had this, and I think this just speaks to more of the lab stuff and the testing that's going on that I thought was interesting here with the beaker and the different containers here. Okay, looking at Daz's session and some of Don's data, again, this looks like the implantation part. Daz has a sketch here, and again, if you look at the edge, there's these little hairs coming off the side of this here. He says it feels like when we tag animal migration. That's where I was looking for that piece. It has nano coating, natural, that disguises it against body cells, stealth and muscle. And I think that in one of his podcasts, Whitley mentioned just that for some reason, the skin, the body's defense system does not attack this. And it's probably because it's disguised to look like, cells. It felt like an event, like a capture release, whereby the device was inserted and positioned, kind of medical, but no mess. I'm not sure the insertion leaves a hole. It knows, parts the atom, slides in between the spaces. And then Don had this, looked a lot like Daz's drawing with the needle. And Don had a couple data points like this as well, of just a beam of light that was focused on this area here, this opening. All right, this is all, again, looking at the data across multiple viewers that brought back brain data or human tissue data. A human flesh feel, we have brain, we have AOL of brain damage, we have all these sketches, again, with these protrusions, soft fleshy materials. Daz, where he nailed it, implant, head, nasal area. Darby writes a UFO in the shape of a human brain with the various nerves of the nervous system dangling down, very vibrant colors. People gather to look at it in a football field. So I think that the implant has these things that probably come out of it and interact with the nervous system somehow to send signals around. Really great breakdown from all of you here. In looking at this sketch here of layers by Dimi, I'm reminded of the Roswell target that we looked at, and was it Roswell or was it, this might be to the Stars Academy data, forgive me, where they talk about how each layer of this piece of metal that they have is one atom. They just layers by atom, by atom, by atom. And I was thinking about that when I was looking at this piece of data here. And Dimi did a really good job of explaining what all this means, how this is able to move and integrates in with the body, and how we have all these tubes here within it, which is very similar to Coral's data that had the device here with the DNA helixes within it. So just more corroborating data. Daz has it here. He's got the lines with the swirls going through it. Frequency-based information transfer. It's coded. Daz is identifying this as a transmitter and receiver, but organic technology. It has a technology feel, but it's not a physical technology like we have. It's energy and not physical. Instantaneous data movement, very small particles. Feels like entanglement. Feels sorry, Daz, I can't make it writing. Fueled or powered. There we go. Fueled or powered by the body. Heat, induction. I'm just catching this now, but a lot of you had heat at some point in your data as well. So it feels manufactured and created and then inserted. Okay, lots of good data here. The target feels like a symbiosis between the life and bio and man-made. It appears to produce benefits on a larger scale. It appears as a device, very sophisticated and complex, incredibly small. It's supposed to attach to certain biostructures. It's supposed to react, give feedback, and react to the changes that occurs in the bio on a large scale of alterations. I think that says cerebral, beneficial. I'm sorry, Demi, I can't read all your writing here.
Sorry, chemical, mechanical, electrical, etc.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry.
The device can control and use its meter to rearrange the medium, altering life and bio through its directions. Overall, it's supposed to provide a better outcome. And then Don gives kind of a narrative here. Bioenhanced ETs and life forms venture out into space to inherit inhabitable planets. As a matter of course, these beings engage in a local terrestrial life study involving many samples organized in groups. At some point, their efforts became a joint collaboration with the terrestrial population, which could be humans, which also involved the local military and government officials of the planet. The human involvement have their own interests in this work, which included military interests, space exploration. The ET beings are sending their results off-world with some end goal of resolving mass extinction concerns. And then we had some eye data, as I mentioned. Whitley talks about seeing a little window appear in his eye. Daz had this sketch of an eye here, and then this is coming from Henny's session, I believe, with this eye data here and these pieces in here. I don't know if this is related to the eye itself or not. Maybe I'm misinterpreting it, but I thought it was interesting. And I saw a couple other drawings in one of your sessions. I thought, oh, I wish I would have grabbed that and put that in there as well as you were going through. And then we had 3 separate viewers draw a hand holding something in their hand. So I thought that was neat. All right, looking at some of the interactions here. It feels like an event, like a focused event in a larger space, either massive or microscopic, ultra-wide dispersal, matter and particles, energy and information. You have a transcendence, an attainment of knowledge, creative or creation. And Daz had an AOL of Satan. And depending on which version of the Bible you're reading, that could be good, that could be bad. Could be the informer here. We have an alien presence felt by Don. I have a strong feeling of a universal of an energy event with a descent and an interaction with a male life. Feels like a very past event. This feels like a larger universal influence here. Feels very intangible, like a space or life or creation, a powerful energy. An intentional, controlled pulse of energy for an ignition of light, a spark of energy from darkness, inspiring, message from God. I mean, when you think about this, this could be a metaphor for, like, Don had light being used to help insert it into the body. And maybe that light is just bringing the life form out of the state of ignorance as well, is what I'm wondering, because this has profoundly changed Whitley's life and bringing him into a whole new state of reality. More from Daz's session here. Knowledge, attainment, Passover, a spiritual growth field of this, an attainment of knowledge and power, like waves canceling each other out, a sense of communication using pictures and feelings, a download from a higher being, like transmitting waves of communication. And he compared it to the Fatima event. Manipulation of energy transferred in space like tendrils and in beams, very subtle makeups to the energy, like projected light, sentient, alive feeling. There's a feeling much like a magnetic attraction between the male and the other, like the energy and information is attracted and kind of snaps into place, like 2 magnets meeting. It isn't the first time. It's generational. Here's that theme again. Over lifetimes, past lives. It's a process. A feel of something or process inside the male that attracts the outside energy and signal. 2 transmitting energy sources. Whitley, in one of his interviews, said that he asked the visitors why they chose him. He said the response he got is, "We saw your light." And that's what drew them to him while he was meditating. I think he was meditating at one point. An inspired inspiration field of this from a non-physical form. They're communicating. These are Daz's sketch here and Don's sketch. human and non-human involvement or collaboration in this study. And Coral, I should have put your sketch in here too. I missed that. I'm sorry, but Coral had this as well. Data hints there is both biological and AI ET life forms or biologically enhanced life forms. The goal seems to be genetic evolution, which I believe was represented in this sketch. So it seems like they're using this tech to somehow genetically evolve the lower species, which might be us. Feeling like a connection of two like minds, one non-human, taller or above. Dad's referred to it as angelic. The non-human entity has a way of transferring knowledge to the male, who is in a trance-like state, transfixed and still. This is an overlay of the energy carrier involved here. The light energy feels light, thin, charged, smells of lightning storms. It's a whole recovery, a whole body experience related to an energy or light. Kind of feels like subtle bodily changes are being made at a base level, subtle DNA. We're looking at symbiosis, cooperation, Borg, prosthetic, avatar doing this job in a video. Okay. Expansion, accretion, it's a growth period. Decisions are being made, planning, disease, evaluation, longevity. Daz calls us out as a classic abduction scenario, which you can't get more abduction scenario than Whitley Strieber, I think. A generational symbiosis, but one that is clearly more technologically superior than the other. There is what is taken, but it's not emotional. It's very clinical feeling, like a job or project feel. Definite feel of both an inferior and superior life interaction. The inferior being is watched and studied by the other. It's planned surprise interactions over the years, which details his life, I think. And then Demi did a great job of explaining this here. Basically, the hive mind up at the top, that these guys can communicate, but the humans that are impacted will receive communication from the hive, but they can't communicate with each other. They're disconnected. But it's a network or a hive, a life software. So this shows how everything is connected, which I think speaks to the tasking as well. Is this where humanity is going? Are we being brought into this greater network of hive communication? Okay, let's look at some of the scientist data here. So an angry person in a white coat can be identified. Dr. Doom, male, light skin, not English, European looking. Language has a lot of eyes in it. German looking, not Putin. Bald, small ears, small wire by the ears, it looks like that says. Age 70 to 80s, wrinkly forehead. Scar, a tattoo on the cheek, small silver oculars, peculiar shoes, unlike coworker shoes. There's a drug addict or a smoker's nose. Human beings, focused attention, holistic mindset, childlike in some ways, enhanced physiology, biology and tech, exotic. Beings feel like multiple, 4, and feel as though they are nominated to watch the project. They feel like non-human, more angelic type of energy. Taz has a nurse or no scientist feel. Procedural, white, bright, something fast, male feel. I find creatures who are watchful over divides that feel 3 and 4 in 2 dimensions, horizontal and vertical in 3 and 4 dimensions. Beings remind me of Seth, in that they feel like shapeshifters, fox, cat, wolf, dog-like, and human-like face sometimes. I think I share it somewhere, but Darby had something similar about the feeling of running through. It might be on my next slide. Yep, here it is. So here's the various sketches. We look at the book here on Whitley Strieber's book, Communion, and then the sketches that you all submitted here. And there may be a couple sketches I missed. If I did, I apologize. A head that looks half reptile, half fish. Strange looking humanoid like feet with blue toenail polish, and then part cat and part human face. I'm moving like an animal foraging in the wilderness. I have to go back and do a little more research. But I think when the communion experiences was happening to Whitley, I think that's when he wrote his book, The Wolfen, which may be about somebody becoming a wolf or something along those lines. Like I can't recall, but I have to go back and look at that. But there's seems to be some kind of shape-shifting element to this as well. Big guardians feel mighty, and the little creatures feel as though they float in their wake like cosmic dust. This reminds me, for the Star Wars fans out there, like metachlorians. What's your metachlorian count to see how well you can use the Force? Maybe it's just how much tech do you have floating through your bloodstream that can connect you to a greater network here. The being felt that it was nurturing a smaller being, a kind of baby in a pool of light. And also that seemed to exude this being from its middle. The face of the being at moments reminded me of a square structure of the Easter Island faces. And then in an instant, it switched to such extreme beauty that I was almost reduced to tears, having a psychedelic experience which reminded me of the art of Alex Gray. The being feels like it has something over its head that stretches right up into a kind of tunnel, but starts as kind of a strange bone structure as an elongated head, a kind of crest or plume from the crown. Creatures are in different layers of reality in both seen and unseen worlds. They remind me of little sea creatures, semi-transparent, milky, cloudy. Feels like a seeding project, but not on a human level. And again, when we first started this out, I don't remember who said it, but somebody said tiny mecha. That might be what we're dealing with here. Interdimensional beings come here. They're present. Interdimensional, defined entity that can time travel and move out of the body into a spiritual one. Now, if we're thinking about that and we're thinking about just the way clicking between channels on a TV works or moving into a different server, reality might just be a different level of programming here that the tech can get you into, a different virtual reality system. Vibratory different. When viewed, looks kind of out of sync, a buzzing. I sense no ill will, just a need to impose a message. The non-physical can change form. It looks loosely human now, but that's not its true form, which is more like a cross between a jellyfish and a cloud. Now, if we go back, if we remember all those images we had of what I was interpreting as a technology, I thought that was really interesting too, with maybe in their base form, maybe they do look like these jellyfish clouds, and then they take on these physical forms when they're interacting with us. I don't know. So this data is obviously open to interpretation. A progression, again, slow over time, maybe a process of healing included here with or for the male life. There is a sense of higher purpose here, an interaction aeons old, nurturing feel from the non-physical. Again, nurturing here is what he's saying, all part of a larger picture. And then he had Ingo's UFO event as an AOL, another AOL of afterlife, just about finished here. Okay, here's that picture here of the larger fish eating the smaller fish, evolving through experience, learning through patterning. Indigenous life forms as group or in groups with long-term analysis. It takes a long time. It feels like project data is handed off to another group within governments or military connections, bureaucracy, and another group off planet with flying ships. Okay, so that brings us to laboratory data. Naeem had some sketches here of this circular shape here. Don was describing underground or below the surface, many levels deep. And then this is from Dimmy's session here, this dome-like structure that we see. Then moving in again, a combination of you had different data about this possible structure, this dome-like structure with some life forms here. A lab scene was described as, again, dome shape, compartmentalization, foreigners and humans involved, government interaction, a space program aspect to it. Naeem's session here has these life forms here moving towards this dome-like structure, packing and moving supplies and rations and transport. It's interesting. I was, in retasking Naeem, I know he wasn't able to make it today. He had a lot of stuff that looked in line with like a government interaction. As the tasker, that information wasn't readily available to me, but 2020 hindsight, I would love to have pushed him more to explore this government connection, because the data you're bringing back seems like there's some kind of government or military tie into this. So I think Naeem was hitting on that as well. He also declared this UFO. He says, I just had to get this out of my system because he was picking up on the UFO aspect of it. A major impact, industrial technology, to each his own, residents, flying craft in our airspace. What this tells me is that this tech is already here. And then just some random data points here, energetics and portals. Dad's had some of this stuff. This might just be the way that they're communicating. Floating in hyperspace we have here, and then this drawing of a tunnel with energy going into it. And then looking at some references to the books that Whitley has written, which I thought was cool. Who was it? Dimmy called out Communion right here. Daz mentioned Afterlife, and Whitley has a book called The Afterlife Revolution, and Coral had There's Kind of a Key, and they're all great reads. The Key, A True Encounter, which was a neat book. So I think you guys were picking up on a lot of different aspects that describe Whitley's attempts to interpret what has been happening to him throughout his life. So, sorry, I know I missed a few things here in there, but it was just a ton of data. So ultimately, it looks like we have a higher race that's interacting with at least this life form and possibly other life forms using small implantable technology that will ultimately help this life form to evolve and at times receive direct communication at the conscious level and other times at the subconscious level. So I open it up to your commentary. Daz, I'll start with you. I know your time is limited. Any thoughts, reactions?
Yeah, it's great to see the data for the first time from everyone, and to see it put together in that format that allows you to bounce it off each other and see how it all kind of overlaps.
Yeah.
Seems like everyone was on target to some degree. And everyone, like they do in this, there's a division of labor, so they all get different, they attack it from different bits depending on themselves and their experiences. But yeah, very, very interesting. It does, in my opinion, lead an extra bit of credence to the story that Whitney has told for the last 40, 50 years.
Yeah. Fascinating story. It's neat to have this perspective of it now.
Yeah, very interesting. And well done, everyone. Good work.
Thank you, Daz. Okay, Don, we'll get your quick feedback on this, how you're feeling after seeing all that data.
Well, first of all, this is amazing project. I really, wonderful experience. I mean, I'm just looking at this and there are things in just about everybody's session where we were all interlacing, right? And then what Carl was talking about, there's these levels of life forms that, I also picked up on, which I felt very holistic about, like nothing to fear. This is something beyond and amazing. And, allow it to happen and don't be scared kind of a thing. Yeah, wow, I'm just happy I'm here.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're here too, Don. Great contributions to the project. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to Henny, your reaction to everything.
I really like seeing the project all together. I have a really down to earth and realistic approach to every target. So it was really good to see higher level data coming around it. And I liked finding bits and pieces in other people's sessions. It's yeah, I've seen that one too. Oh yeah, I know what you're talking. Oh, I have those waves too. So I like how it all ties together and it makes a complete picture from at least my very down to earth point of view. It makes much more sense seeing other people's data now.
Great. Thank you, Henny. Darby?
Great presentation, Dennis, and
Thank you.
some impressive data from the viewers. A lot of correlation. Nice job, everybody.
Thanks, Darby. Timmy?
Sorry. I absolutely love doing it, and I felt compelled to do it, and it was totally different from other session because it was an inner peace also, and I didn't felt a rush. I have a streaming of data that I have to put together. That was my feeling, and I really loved it, and all the session, of course, and your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Demi. And Coral. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm muted. I'm going to just share one image. Let's see if I can get it right. Yeah, there. The eye in the sky. The eye. Yeah. That was to me, that been the watching. So it was a really amazing experience because I knew that there was this going on, but I loved your analysis. So as Henny says, when you see the metadata and you realize that we're all bringing in little bits of the same thing, each looking at it from our own spirit, soul, whatever. Yeah. It's really, really makes the whole experience more profound. So well done for that beautiful analysis.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to all of you. This was This was a really big project, but I feel that it gives us another glimpse. I know we're all truth seekers in our own light. I think it gives us another glimpse of what's possible and kind of this path that we're on. I hope we all have a takeaway from an experience like this that's beneficial to all of us as we move through it. And you know, I have to give a thank you to the other viewers that didn't make it here. I know Anita contributed to this session as well. She was, I believe, I'm just looking at my notes here. I believe she was indicated in blue. I got nervous when I was going through trying to remember whose color was which, but Anita had a lot of blue stuff, and then Naeem as well wasn't able to attend today, but he was indicated in red. So thank you to them for contributing. And I have to give a big shout out to Daz, who really is the godfather behind HellFire. And, you know, he's played a huge role in orchestrating so many things and giving all of us guidance and insights and wisdom. And Daz, just so thankful for all the work that you do, buddy. Really, really cool stuff that we're able to now do because of what you put together. So thank you so much. And you can check out the website that Daz built for HellFire. I believe it's hellfirerv.com, where you can see all of our projects that we've done. You get a background on each one of the viewers and members of the group as well. So, and some other fun things on there and more to come, because now I hear there's a new target that's out. I believe Coral is our project manager on this one. So looking forward to seeing where it takes us next. So a big thank you to everybody in the group. Great sessions and many more to come. Thanks so much, friends.